title is Why Drupal is the Answer, regardless of the question. And truth to be told, I didn't came up with this title myself. It's slightly arrogant, but someone in the community suggested this title, so I decided to use it. Either way, I hope that throughout this presentation I'll be able to tell and explain you why Drupal can be used for many use cases. That's not to say that Drupal is always the best answer to every problem. I'm a firm believer of the fact that you should use the right tool for the right job. So that's it. Let's get started. First of all, by day I'm a PhD student at the University of Ghent, and my work focuses on Java and Java virtual machines. It's at the compiler level, so it's low-level compiler technologies. And then by night, I'm working on Drupal. I'm the founder of the project and also the project lead. And of course, Drupal is all written in PHP. So there's two opposite worlds in my life. First of all, what is Drupal? This is a picture taken at FOSDEM last year. I'll try to adjust it better. So we didn't have a booth last year, but we sort of conquered the booth. So there was a spare table we found, and then we made a booth out of that. I don't know who wrote this or who made this, but it turns out to be quite accurate, so I decided to use it for this presentation. So it says, Drupal is a PHP-based CMS or a web application framework or a community website and blogging tool. And it's also fully buzzword compliant with Ajax, RSS, aggregation, syndication, tagging, blogging, social networking, APIs, and geolocation. And also it's GPL, as you can see in the right corner. So really Drupal is two things. On the one hand, it's a content management system, which means that users can download Drupal and install it and get a site, build a site real quick. And on the other hand, it's also a web application framework, meaning that it's more of a tool for developers. They can download it, they can create additional modules-driven app functionality. So it's really these two things. So why would we use Drupal? One reason to use Drupal is that it's from Belgium, or at least it started in Belgium. Of course, nowadays we're actually a very international community. I think the Belgians are really the minority in the Drupal community. So, and truth to be told, we look more like this. It's a little bit dark, but this picture was taken at the Drupal conference this summer, which was held in Brussels. And I think about 250 people showed up, of which I guess 10% or something were people from Belgium. So we're really an international community. We're also a fast-growing community. If you look at the number of posts on the website, you see that's been growing exponential. We started in 2001, 2007 now. Our main website does more than 10 million page views a month. It adds up to about 1 or 2 terabytes of traffic, and that's, if you know our website, you know that it's very boring. There's almost no graphics. It's plain text. It's almost plain text. So it's really a lot. We Drupal core, and that's only for the core, which is the main distribution of Drupal, is downloaded about 80,000 times a month. And on the website we have 120,000 registered users. We also have a growing and healthy ecosystem. When we just started, pretty much all of the users were also the developers of Drupal, and over time have changed. And now we have more users than we have developers. We also have vendors and system integrators and hosting companies doing full-time Drupal stuff. To give you an idea, there's about more than 20 companies which do nothing but Drupal sites, and there's more than 250 individual consultants. But most of all, we're a very active and passionate community. We organize conferences. We organized 5 conferences the last 2 years, and we're currently organizing the Open Source CMS Summit, which will be hosted at Yahoo in Sunnyvale, and it takes place in March, in about 3 or 4 weeks from now. There's also books written about Drupal. And most of all, we also make cakes and cookies in the shape of the logo, which I think is a good sign for the fact that many of us are passionate about what we do and what we stand for. And so, to help support this community and to help Drupal grow and scale, we have a special announcement to make today. You're the first to hear about this. So launching today, we are launching a Drupal association, which is a non-profit organization meant to support Drupal. It will be based in Belgium, but the board of directors and the people that make up the association will be very international. And the goal of the association will be to help the Drupal community succeed. And one of the things we'll be doing is continue organizing these conferences, making sure that the Drupal infrastructure will continue to scale and things like that. And the announcement or press release will go out tomorrow. If you have more questions about this, you can contact us at association@drupal.org. Or you can check out the website we made at association.drupal.org. There's all kinds of information about why we're doing this, who's involved, and the things we're going to take on. So, back to the main story. We also have lots of great users. A lot of community sites use Drupal. The Drupal website itself is based on Drupal, but also GNOME, KDE, Mozilla, Debian, and Ubuntu have one or more Drupal sites. It's not always their main site, of course, but there are various projects using Drupal. Universities tend to use Drupal. In Belgium, all the major universities have one or more Drupal sites, but also big universities in the States. Broadcast companies are using Drupal in Belgium. VRT is using Drupal to build a YouTube clone. The main website of MTV UK is built on Drupal, and they're using Drupal to make a MySpace clone. BBC is using Drupal for a podcast site, and so on. You can also use Drupal on your internet. It doesn't have to be a 2-bit website. Like Yahoo and Sky build part of their intranet on Drupal. But also big institutions like NASA, NATO, the United Nations have one or more Drupal sites, as you can see on the screenshots. Well, even Zattergreen uses Drupal. For those who don't know, Zattergreen is it's one of the biggest Belgian websites, and it's a shop blog kind of site. So if you're Belgian, you probably know the site. Also, Rockstars use Drupal. This is a site of Moby, which the site is entirely built on Drupal. This journal, but also a collection or an overview of all these CDs and things like that. But most importantly, most of the Drupal sites are actually small and simple and often boring websites, like mine. That's really the cool thing about Drupal, that it's really accessible to so many people, and the fact that it's empowering so many people to build simple websites. For example, the other day I bumped into a website which was created by a school teacher to build, to build a site for his students, and to me that's really a lot more important than all the big sites I just mentioned before. So the mission really is that we're building technology to allow everyone to create multi-user interactive websites. And all these sites I just listed and the examples I gave are really a testament to the fact that Drupal is not just a CMS, but that it is really a content management framework, because you can take it in so many different directions and create so many different sites. The area where we are really strong is in the upper right corner. where you have lots of sites with a lot of interaction and typically many contributors. So how about you? How many of you have a Drupal site? Okay, quite a few. So let's have a closer look at the Drupal platform. So Drupal uses a LAMP stack. What this means is that you need some sort of platform. You have hardware, can be any hardware really. And on top of the hardware, you need an operating system. It can be Linux, Solaris, Windows, and so on. And on top of the operating system, you need to have a database. Typically, most Drupal sites use MySQL, but we also support Postgres. And there's people working on Oracle and DB2 abstraction layers. And the database really makes up the content layer. So that's where all the data and the content is actually stored. And you also need a web server. Typically, again, most people use Apache, but we also support Microsoft's web server, or Lighty, or any other web server. And then you need, of course, PHP. It can be PHP 4 or PHP 5. Both work. And then on top of that, we actually have Drupal, which is indicated in blue. And Drupal itself consists out of 3 parts. You have the Drupal core, which is the base functionality and the building blocks. And on top of that, you add functionality, and the functionality is provided by modules. So the modules make up the application layer. And then on top of that, you have themes, and the themes define the look and feel of your site. So that's the presentation layer. So one of the questions I often get, especially because I'm also doing lots of Java work for my day job, is why PHP and not Java? And the answer really is that PHP is made for the web, so it has lots of useful shortcuts and convenient functions to write web applications with. And also because I think that Sun failed to make Java accessible, especially many years ago. No matter how you look or where you look, PHP hosting is typically a lot cheaper than Java hosting, or at least it used to be. Plus, it's for people who are new to the web, it's much easier to learn PHP than it is to learn Java. Of course, it also has drawbacks. But I honestly believe that the web is built or is going to be built by amateurs. And I think that's why PHP is so successful. So say you want to build a company website, how would it work? Essentially, you would just enable a set of modules. You would enable the static page module so you can create static pages. You might want to enable the file upload module so you can upload files to your Drupal site. You might want to enable the contact module or the e-commerce module to provide a contact form and to sell things of your website. So you want to make a discussion website, you just enable a different set of modules. So in this case, for example, you would enable the forum module, the profile module, and the comment module. So you could have discussions on your website, and so people, the users of your site could they could provide a profile, upload a picture of themselves, mention the URL of their website, and so forth. Now, if you want to create a company website that also has a discussion area, you just enable all the modules. Okay, so that's really how it works. You just pick it, you just pick the modules you want, you enable them, and then you have to do some configuration tuning to get everything to work together. And the cool thing is that right now we have over 1,000 different modules you can download and install, so there's really a lot of functionality already provided by the Drupal community. So if people want to create a complex website or a simple website, it usually goes, you typically spend a lot of time investigating all of these modules. Once you figure out which modules to use, you can actually set up your Drupal site in 1 or 2 days. And then, on top of that, you'll spend a couple more days or sometimes longer to actually get the last 5% in place as well. And that involves, for example, theming, customizing, making it all fit together. But in general, if you have a customer, for example, and you want to do a prototype, it's really easy to do a quick prototype. And here is another example. Okay, so say we start with the story node type, which is provided by a story module, and a story is really a basic content type. It has a title and a body, it has an author and a couple of other things. So it's really a very basic type. And say you enable the event module, which is a module provided in the contributions repository, then all of a sudden you're able to associate dates with your story. So you can associate a start date and an end date with your story, and so you event enable that story. It also means that you're able to show or to provide an iCal feed or some other feed of all these stories which have been event enabled. Okay, so the event module also provides these kind of things. Next, say you want to enable the location module, then all of a sudden you're also able to associate geolocation information with your story, and you're able to show where your story with the date takes place on a map. Okay, so you have Google Map integration, for example, which allows you to visualize all of that. Now, next, say you want to enable the sign-up module, then all of a sudden people are able to register for your event. Okay, so they can say whether they want to attend or not. And lastly, for example, when you enable the e-commerce module, you're able to turn this into a conference site where people have to pay before they can register. Okay, so by enabling these modules and chaining them together, you can build powerful websites. Then, as an example, the FOSDEM website itself is built in Drupal. They also have an iCal feed and stuff like that. I haven't been involved with that, so I don't know whether they did it the right way or not. I think they did. Okay, so in Drupal, almost every piece of content is what we call a node. So a node is really a baseline from which all the other content types are derived, a little bit like in object-oriented programming, where you have events, articles, reviews, they're all derived from the base node type. And the node system, which deals with these nodes, provides abstraction. On the one hand for the data, so every node has a number of common fields, like every piece of content in the system has an author, has a date, has an ID. But also, on every piece of content in the system, you want to perform a number of operations. Okay, so you want to publish content, you want to provide workflow and access control on that content, and the node system abstracts all of that. And then, given the node system, modules can extend the node system in two ways. So either modules can provide new node types, which are the gray bars, I guess, like form topic, static page, and so on. So they basically extend the node type, and then or modules could cross-cut across all these different node types, and that's functionality on top of that. For example, the upload module can provide upload functionality and attach it to any of these content types. And then you can configure which node types are affected by that module. So you don't have to use that. Other examples are trackback and email subscriptions, for example. So here's another example. Say the node module, as I explained, provides default functionality and default fields, like a title, a body, and a timestamp. Then you enable the recite module, for example, and all of a sudden you're able to associate one or more ingredients to your content type. So it becomes a recite. And the rating module allows you to score the recite. And then, for example, the comment module allows people to add comments to the recite. So that's really how it works. Then we also have something called the CCK, which stands for the Content Construction Kit. Okay, so like I explained, modules extend the nodes in Drupal. And the way we typically did that, or can still do, is by creating a module which involves programming PHP to extend the nodes. Okay, and the CCK, or the Content Construction Kit, provides a user interface which allows you to create new fields and associate these with nodes. So this means you no longer have to be a programmer to create new content types in the system. Okay, so that's one of our most popular modules, and we're slowly integrating this functionality in the Drupal core. And then, even with the CCK, you can still have other modules which add fields or functionality to nodes. Okay, so the node system is a central piece of functionality in Drupal, but we have lots of other building blocks, which I can't explain all in this presentation, but essentially we have a database abstraction layer, which allows you to write secure SQL queries. We have support for clean URLs, which allows you to score high in Google and other search engines. We have, for a couple of years now, we have full Unicode support. We have session handling, localization, which allows you to translate your user interface, but also your contents. We have file handling, validation. We have permissions where you can assign roles to users, and then you assign permissions to these user roles. We have support for user accounts, logging, and things like that. So we really try to make it easy for developers to get started and to build web applications really quick. And here is just one example, which is the user management system, which is part of Drupal. We provide secure session management. It's also implemented in a way which will make it easy to scale the session handling. We have account registration. People can create accounts. We have optional email verification, database-based sessions, role-based granular permissions, user profiles, LDAP integration, and so on. So the list of features and functionality is really, really long, and it's very difficult to it's impossible to explain all of this in one session. But the point is that all of this functionality is typically available. It's very easy to mix. So next, I want to provide a demo of Drupal 5. Drupal 5 is the latest Drupal release, so it's actually available. We released it 1 or 2 months ago. I think more like 1 month ago, and so far we had lots of positive feedback about it. So what are the main changes in Drupal 5? First of all, if you haven't, if you were a user of Drupal 4 and you switched to Drupal 5, typically you would have been surprised because we really made a lot of visual changes. So we reorganized the administration pages. We added a web-based installer, which also does requirement checking. This was always typically one of the main criticisms we got, that Drupal was hard to install and use. So both these two items should have taken care of a lot of these complaints. We also integrated the JavaScript library. We chose jQuery as our JavaScript library because it's really small and easy to use. We have a new core team. We also made lots of performance and bandwidth improvements. We started integrating support for custom content types, which is the CCK of the Content Construction Kit. We improved the module management and the block system and things like that. Let me see. Okay, so this is what you get after you install Drupal. Installing Drupal, we have an installed Shield now, installed system, and it takes about 2 or 3 steps and a couple of clicks, so it's really easy. And once you install Drupal, you end up on this page. And it essentially welcomes you, asks you to create your first user account, which I'll do now. And the first user account in Drupal is a little bit special. It has user ID 1, and it always has all the access rights, so it's sort of a super user. I hope it works. So that's been taken care of. Because you are user 1, you're already given your password on the screen. But for all other users, the password will be emailed. So I'll change the password just to be sure. So now I just changed the password. Then you can go back to the main page and read the other instructions. But essentially, now I'm logged in. You see there is a, I'm going to quickly share. You see there is a new menu which has an administer link which you can follow. And if you follow the administer link, you end up on the administration pages. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice quickly is there's a red bar, which usually means bad things happened. If you click the link, you'll see a complete status report. So like I mentioned, the installer also does requirement checking, and whenever you go to the administration page, it will recheck all of the requirements. So if someone downgraded PHP or upgraded some other service in the system, which might accidentally break your system, you'll be notified. And on top of that, it also gives you some other information, like as you can see here, certain functionality on your website needs GD, and GD isn't available, so it's complaining about that. Normally, you would go over these and fix them one after another. But let's go back to the main administration page. One of the things you see is that we try to categorize all the functionality in different blocks. So we have content management, we have site building, we have site configuration, we have user management, and logging. And under that we have lots of other links which point to different kinds of functionality. So that's what the administration page looks like. One of the things you can do, for example, is you can create new content. By default, there is only 2 content types enabled, which is story and page. Stories, they go to the main page and allow you to create a blog or a Slashdot-style discussion or news website. So, for example, you can just type in the title and the body. There's all kinds of settings here. You can also install it as a menu, which I'll show you in a minute. You can control whether comments should be enabled or disabled. You can change the author, and it uses Ajax here. So normally it should do auto completion, and it does. I can do that again. And then there's also publishing options. You can say whether it's published, whether it should be promoted to the front page, and whether you want to create a new revision of it, just like in the Plone presentation. We have revisioning. And if you submit it, it should go to the front page like this. Say, for example, let me see. Say, for example, I want to use clean URLs, which are human readable. I need to enable a module for that. So I go to Site Building Modules. And here you see a list of all the modules which are provided by core. And normally, if you have contributed modules, they'll you'll have additional field sets below that. And to have clean URLs, we need a path module, so you can click it, enable it, and then save the configuration. And that's all it takes to enable the module. Also in Drupal 5, which wasn't available in Drupal 4, are module versions. We're now doing dependency checking and also version checking to see whether one of the modules is outdated. An example of the dependency checking you can see here. So it says that the comment module is required by the forum module. Anyway, let me see if I need to enable any other module. So I'll enable a couple more modules, like the contact module allows you to create contact forms. The forum module I'll enable, which allows you to create forums, and also enable the search module. I'll start with this. So if I go back to the main page, I should now be able to then go edit. I should now be able to provide a clean URL for this post. And so I enabled the path module, and the path module extends this form. So there's a new field set, and I can use that to specify URL. So if I submit this, and if I go to view, you actually see that the URL now became hello FOSDEM. This little part you can also remove using your HD access file. I don't have that enabled in this configuration, but normally it would look like this on a normal Drupal site. There's also modules which will auto-generate these paths for you based on the title and things like that. Now say I want to add this, say this would be a page on my site and I want to add it to the navigation menu. I could, again, I edit it again. I go to the menu settings, and here I need to provide a title for the menu item, and the description is optional, and then you essentially can attach pages to any other page in the system. Okay, so you just have to select one parent, and then the page will appear as a child of that. And there is, by default, well, there are two navigation menus, but you can create more. The first one is this one, this block, and you can add menu items to that block. And the second menu we have by default is this one, which is called the primary links, and you can also add menu items to that. But you can also create additional blocks if you want to, or additional navigation schemes. So say we want to add it to the primary links. I select primary links as the parent item and submit. And as you can see, the link now appeared right there. Okay. What else can we show? We also have blocks, which in the flow presentation was called portlets. As you can see, I'm not sure it's really clear, but you have different areas. So essentially you have themes, and the themes specify the areas where you can place blocks. Okay, so different themes can have different areas. And this particular theme has a header, which you can see in the top, has a right sidebar, also has a left sidebar, and has a content and a footer area. And here it provides a list of all the blocks. So for example, the navigation block, which is this menu here, is now positioned on the left sidebar, but I can easily move it to the right sidebar like this. Changes will take effect immediately, as you can see. We can also add blocks. So either modules can provide blocks, or we can add blocks ourselves. So this is another block. This. So now the block becomes available in the list. I have to specify which region it goes in, say the left sidebar. You can also give it a weight, and the weight defines the order of the blocks. So the blocks with the highest weight will sink lower and will become available at the bottom of the page. If I save this, the block should become available. Yeah, I think this was the block. And then there is also lots of settings for each block which you can configure. You can describe the block using multiple input formats. It can either be filtered HTML, you can even provide PHP code, so you can copy-paste snippets in it that actually execute or things, or that access the database, or that call a web service, or whatever you want to. You can also specify who can see the block, or who can disable the block. You can also specify which roles have access to the block, anonymous users or authenticated users. You can also specify using various ways on which pages these blocks should show up. Okay, so that's how you add stories or pages and how you add blocks. Something else which might be interesting is a user system. There's a separate menu item over here. If you go to this page, you see an overview of all the users on the system, and Drupal sites can have thousands of users. Like I mentioned, the Drupal website has over 100,000 users. And with these controls, you can easily mass operate them, so you can quickly do batch operations on all of them. On this site, there's only one user, but you can also add users to this interface, or you can ask users to create an account themselves. And then I'll go back to user management. So I mentioned we have roles. So in this case, by default, there is only two roles. One role for the anonymous user and one role for the authenticated user. Okay, but say you have also administrators on your site. You simply add a role like this. The role has been added, and you can see there's a new role available. And for each of these roles, you can edit the permissions. Gives you a matrix like this, so each of the modules expose functionality which you can provide the people in that role access to. For example, administrators might be allowed to administer blocks, should be able to access comments, should be able to administer comments, and so on. Okay, so if you go back to user management, you go to the users, you can easily, for example, you select the user, you can choose to add the role to selected users like this. And as you can see, user trees is part of the administrator's role. Okay, there's also a different way to do that. If you edit the user trees, you'll also have a list of the available roles like that. Let's see. The same with a contact form. Really, it's really easy to create a contact form. What you do is you add a category, for example, sales. You add recipients, which is just a list of email addresses. You can even provide an auto reply, hello, you received your email, yada, 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 and then submit. And you have a contact form created. So then all you need to do is add the contact form to the menu. So then you go to menus. And on this page is a list of all the menus exposed by the modules. You can then choose to enable them or to add them to a menu for to navigation. For example, the contact form is still disabled, but you can enable it. When you enable it, again, you have to select the parent. So say you want to add it to the primary links as well. We select that and we submit. And boom, you have a contact form. If you click it, you'll be able to send me a message. What else can I show? Maybe the theme section. We have. Okay, so by default, Drupal uses the same theme for the front end as for the back end. So with Drupal 5, you also can choose different themes for the back end. That's something a lot of people have requested before, because they want a clean separation between the front end and the back end. And now, with this functionality, it's possible to do that. Maybe I should first show you the various themes. So you can download and install any number of themes you want, and then here, yeah, you can select the theme. By default, Garland is enabled, but you can also check enable, for example, Marvin. Simply do it like this. You save the configuration, and all of a sudden your site looks different. Okay, so that's how it works. So I guess that provides a little bit of an idea of how Drupal 5 works and what you can do with it. So I hope I was able to show you that by using all these modules and all this functionality, it's quite easy to configure Drupal as essentially any kind of site you want. It can be a personal blog like my site. It could be a news aggregator. It could be a corporate website, which is fairly static. It could be a discussion or community website, or really anything in between. So I hope this relates back to the original title of the presentation. And that Drupal can be the answer for many of the things you want to do with Drupal. But again, that it doesn't necessarily is the best answer to all of these problems. And another question a lot of people have is, will it be fast? So Drupal has a page caching mechanism, which means we can generate the page once, store it in a database or on the file system, and then when the page is requested again, we just serve you the cached version of the page. We can do that under certain situations where we don't have to personalize the page too much. And when you enable page caching, Drupal will be significantly faster than when it's not. Okay, so with page caching enabled, on an old machine you easily are able to get 250 you're easily able to serve 250 requests per second without too much queuing. And if you compare it with a non-cached version, you can see it's the small bars on the left. It's a lot slower than. And this is a joke. I warn you up front. So I once set out to compare Drupal with Joomla, and that was Joomla 1.0, not the Joomla 1.5, which is supposed to be a lot faster. And with page caching enabled, Drupal turns out to be 400% faster, so 4 times as fast as Joomla. Now, if you take a Sunfire T2000, which is a state-of-the-art Sun machine, which is known for its power consumption, so it has low power costs. Now, if you use Drupal over Joomla, you're able to save $6.33 a month in power consumption, which adds up to $75 a year. So, by using Drupal, you help save the forest. So will it be fast? Yes. Will it scale? The answer is also yes. Scaling Drupal is essentially scaling a LAMP stack, which is well understood. It means you have to scale each of the layers in your stack. You have to scale Apache, you have to scale MySQL, and so forth. And Drupal supports all of that. So it will scale. Now, if you want to get involved, there's many ways to get involved. We need people for all kinds of things. The best way to get involved is to just check out Drupal.org. We have issue trackers where you can check all the pending issues and the pending tasks and the things you want to have help with. We also have groups on Drupal.org, which are interest groups, either geographically or by topic. It's also a good way to tap into the community and to get involved with the people that care about the specific topic. We also have, if you're living in Belgium, we have Drupal.be, which is the home of the Belgian user group, and we have events. We meet every once in a while, and we next month or even this month we're going to organize a small workshop for people who want to learn more about Drupal, and you'll be able to attend that if you want to. So check it out at Drupal.be. There's also Google Summer of Code. The last 2 years we've always been involved with the Google Summer of Code, which is a project by Google, which is meant to sponsor students to work on Drupal during the summer. And Google just announced that they're going to organize a third Summer of Code, and we're looking for people to submit proposals for projects in order to be a mentor for these students. And then we hope to get some students as well this year. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, or make sure to check out the website. Question?
Yeah. Is there any reason for a new installation that we should not install 5, that we should install 4.7 instead?
So the question is there any reason to install 4.7 instead of Drupal 5? So Drupal 5 is a lot easier to use. Will also be faster, typically, than Drupal 4. So I would always recommend to go with Drupal 5, except because Drupal 5 is only 1 month old. It means that not all of the contributed modules are properly updated to work with Drupal 5. Okay, so before you start your website, make sure to check on Drupal.org which modules are compliant with Drupal 5, and then make a decision based on that.
It's the same problem as using Postgres instead of MySQL.
Yes, so I think the question is, will all the modules work on both MySQL and Postgres? So the answer is, unfortunately, no. Drupal core will work with Postgres because we write NC as well. So we provide, we stick to the standards, but some module maintainers sometimes use MySQL specific snippets or statements, and when they do that, the module won't work with Postgres.
Do you have an idea of the percentage? 5%, 50%?
Not really. But it's something which we should do a better job at communicating as well. So it's not really clear from the website which modules will work with Postgres and which ones will work only with MySQL, for example. Question? Okay, so the question is, do we have to install CCK even though it's integrated in core? The answer to that question is, because the CCK is such a big part, I mean, it's a lot of code, and we're essentially doing sort of a heart transplantation. Okay, we're taking a very core component out of Drupal and we're replacing it with an improved version, the CCK. And we decided to do that in a number of steps. And Drupal 5, we completed, depending on how you come, the first or the second step to get the CCK in core. So right now you're able to create new content types with core, which only have a title and a body. Okay, and in the next version, hopefully Drupal 6, you'll be able to, you'll have the complete CCK in core, and you'll also be able to add additional fields to these content types. So right now, if you're using Drupal 5 and you want to use a CCK, you still need to install some additional modules which provide the missing functionality. Question?
Can you use on the content level access rights?
So, is the question, can I explain how access rights work?
No. Right now, the access rights are defined by module.
Yes.
If you want to build a community site where you provide access to specific content,
okay,
to specific user level,
okay,
right now it looks like it's problematic.
So there's two things here. There is access to functionality and there's access to content. And these are two separate things. in Drupal. Access to functionality is what I showed you with the user roles and permissions. Access to content I didn't provide a demo for. But it is supported by the Drupal core. But the way to use it is by installing an additional modules, one or more additional modules. And through these modules, you'll be able to express various things like allow people in this role to access content in this category, or allow people with this role to access content of this type. And because there are so many different workflows and scenarios, we haven't put that in core yet. So core supports everything which is needed for these modules to be built on top of it. Okay, so there's just building blocks in core, but they're not exposed through a user interface. The way to do that is to install additional modules. But it's completely possible, and I think there's up to 10 modules which allow you to configure access to content in various ways, depending on your situation and your workflow. Question?
Yes. Does Drupal or one of the modules provide a meta syntax to link to other stories or to do like boldface, underlines, something like that?
So is it,
you need to put the content in HTML already.
So is the question, is there a module which allows you to link different?
First, to link different to an existing story,
Mm-hmm.
and also if there's a syntax, like in Wiki, for example, to create sections to put boldface.
So, for example, the CCK has a field which is called node ref, which allows you to link different nodes and then sort of make it look like one piece of content. And then the answer to your other question is everything in Drupal, all the content in Drupal is run through a number of filters. It could be one or more filters, and we call a group of filters we call an input format. Okay, so I'll show you. So when you edit a piece of content, like in this case, a body, there is often an input format field set, and it allows you to select different filters. For example, it could be filtered HTML, and in this case, it will replace web page addresses and email addresses and make it into links. It will strip evil HTML, and it will do line reads and paragraph tags. Okay. And by default in code, there's 3 filters, but through modules you can add more. For example, you could add or install a filter which provides wiki functionality, or which provides support for VB code or other markup languages used in other systems. There is also a module which allows you to use LaTeX and do, describe math and things like that. So it's possible to have different formats of this. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Can you explain a little bit how multi-sites how different content
Okay. So multi-site, there is a number of possible solutions. One is you can run multiple sites in a single code base, and then each of these applications will have their own database. And so permissions are managed on a per database type. The other solution is where you have multiple sites which share a database or share certain tables within a database. You don't have to share all the tables. And then if you, for example, share the user table and the user roles table, you also be sharing permissions. But it's a good question, but it's a technical and